Call?
Sure. I was being naughty and prepping my demo as we were getting going, but let me take over. And I had issues last week as well, so hopefully I don't get them this time. Okay. Can y'all see? Can you see?
That's good.
All right, great. Um, so yeah, the first thing is that we now have a brand new repo. It's actually not a brand new repo, but a old repo with brand new data in it, and that is the OSS funding repo. I'll just read the description here. It contains a curated registry of grants and other funding to open source software projects. It's a good complement to OSS Directory because it uses the same namespacing conventions. So basically, Open Source Observer, the name in OSS Directory, as well as in OSS funding, is just our GitHub org, open source-observer. And what we've done is identified a range of different funders. So every funder basically has a YAML file, which contains some basic attributes like its name, display name, and then they're able to initialize grant pools. So each grant pool is basically a round of funding that they've deployed. Here's another example. Let's take Optimism. They have 7 or so different funding rounds that they've done, and each of these is then complemented by, this is a new one actually, Stellar. So we have almost 30 funding rounds from the Stellar Development Foundation. And for each of these, what we have is basically a CSV upload, which is very easy for external contributors to submit, which basically takes the project name, an amount converted to US dollars, the date of the funding. Then we have these funder names, which map back to the names in OSS directory, and the product names map to those as well. And then there's some metadata which gets stored over here. And then we have the grant pool name. So again, one way of adding data to OSS funding is by making a CSV upload in this way. We've also been working with our friends over at MetaGov on something called the DAO Improvement Proposal number 5, which is basically a standard schema, not just for grant pools, but all of the applications and funding data upstream of that. And so they've actually created a kind of way of transforming our data and processing it into the DAO IP5 schema. And they're going to be doing a hackathon using all this data, I think, launching this week or next week and going for the next month or so. So it was kind of cool to see them come in and just contribute directly to the same repo. And as like an example, here's their a JSON object for their one of their grant pools, and then you have all the application data as well. So they're contributing, building off of this, and then we both have the same interest of getting more and more projects and their funding to be onboarded and captured here. So that's kind of the first part, which is really getting project data and funding data into Open Source Observer. The next part is actually creating some models that allow us to work with all of this data. And as an example, I was trying to queue this up right now. I'll just go in directly. So we now have a model which basically takes all of this funding data, whether it comes from a CSV or in some cases, like at Gitcoin, we've actually replicated their database. And so we're able to do a mapping between Gitcoin projects and OSS directory names. So here we have kind of the combination of the two data sets. Let me just take where to project name equals, let's do our own. And I'm going to do, well, let's get this going now. But you could see different sources of funding and how much has come through in each of them. The Gitcoin data, there's a lot of contributions. So it's a fairly large, or at least in terms of the number of rows, it's pretty large. But you can see that we have, Gitcoin matching, Gitcoin donations. Here, let me just do this properly. Event source, and some amount as total funding. Okay, I think that'll work. And so we can just see right now of the data that's been then captured here. Open Source Observer should be in Yeah, so we have from OSS funding, we have a couple different sources from Gitcoin matching. We have this from Gitcoin donations. We have that as well. Actually, let me say from project name. That would capture the funder, I think. Sorry, I always say I'm not going to do SQL live, but I break that rule every demo. Okay, so yeah, right now we have Octant, we have Gitcoin. Once OSS directory updates, we'll be able to get the optimism data and some of the Arbitrum data as well. But this is cool. Here's another one that's actually probably better captured. I think Rotki would have a lot. And we can now create metrics and marts on top of this, which is fun to see. Yeah, there you go. So they have a couple different rounds of funding that they've received grants from. So that's on the OSS funding side. We also have a few new staging models, which I'm excited to unveil. So Santi, we've been having some issues with the Ethereum attestation service one. We now have a staging model, which hopefully will get rid of some of the flakiness that we saw going directly to the source. And here's what that looks like. You can get attestation data here. We also have some Gitcoin related ones and some OSS funding related staging models that you can find in our DBT docs. And then, I didn't even get this ready. Let me show you the Sunny Awards. We have a whole lot of both applications coming in. Hopefully this will load. But we also now have creator metrics. So there's two types of projects that are being rewarded. One is an application which will submit a contract address. The other is a creator. And this is not my website, so I can't blame it for not working right now. But it does seem to be having an issue. Oh. There we go. All right, we're good. So here are the creator metrics. They look at how many NFT drops a creator has done, how many mints, how many transactions, the USD value of all of those, the number of Farcaster minters. This one should be removed. I don't know what's still there. You can see, here's one that's very prolific. Here's one that has a lot of individual minters. Here's one with a large amount of USD transacted over time. The number of Farcaster minters. You can see all these things here, which is kind of cool. And then we also have the applications as we did previously. I think we demoed that last week. And so the award ceremony is going to be happening on October 17th, so sometime next week, which is cool. Next up, we have, I didn't have the open rank thing ready. Maybe I'll show that at the very end. We've also been doing some updates on our website. We now have a few kind of use cases where we can highlight different partnerships that we have with different foundations and DAOs that we're working with. So the first one here is kind of looking at how we can help programs do grant analytics. And it shows our partnerships with Arbitrum, Gitcoin, and Octant. And then we have another one over here, which is looking at our retro funding work, mostly with Optimism, but also increasing with other ecosystems like Filecoin. And each of these is pretty simple. You can find out more information about it. And then these links take you to blog posts or case studies that we've done detailing our work directly with that partner. I think that's it from me. Yeah, I'm going to stop there. Are there questions?
Looking good. Sorry, my internet and computer died, so I had to reboot. But did Javi go already?
No, he didn't. Javi's going to come back.
Yep. I'll share my screen. I think this should work now.
Oh, okay. Go for it then.
Okay.
Nope.
Nope. Okay, I think it's my Discord because it's like completely failing after trying. I'm going to restart, reboot. I'll be right back.
Okay, I can go next. No worries.
Thank you.
Carl, sounds like you already shared the stuff that we're doing on the web design, right?
Well, I just shared the two
The
parts
use
that I
case
worked
pages.
on. Yeah, so I think it'd actually be probably good to zoom out and you give the whole perspective on what's being updated.
Well, just generally speaking, yeah, our website hasn't really changed in a year. This has kind of been our webpage for a long time. And yes, we added a few of these blurbs to just get a better sense of like at a high level what we do, but we thought it was about time that we actually added a bunch more pages. This new footer kind of describes the new structure and the layout of what we're doing. So we added a bunch of product pages, the types of marketing pages you would expect. So yes, we have an API, but now we actually talk about our API, and we also think about the website as more of a product, which we're tentatively calling OSO Terminal. Also same thing goes for the data warehouse. A lot of these blurbs still work in progress, but we'll be shipping something here. Also, some minor things like the branding page is pretty useful because I've had to look for our logo in colors multiple times. Clearly still need to tweak some things and finish things up. These colors are correct, but the hex values are not. But it gives you a sense of what we're trying to do here. So I think we should expect, most of these pages to be fleshed out probably by the next couple days. I would say let's just ship it, and we can always, make it prettier later. So that's it on the website side. On the blog side, I forget if I shared this last time, but it was a really minor tweak I'm very happy about, which is just things are organized now by the type of blog post it is, as well as the ecosystem that we work in. So we can click on, say, optimism and get everything related to optimism or whatever else, which is nice. So yeah, that's just minor things on the front end side of things. I'll take a quick digression and also just like give a quick preview of some of the things that Reuven's been working on. This is also still in progress and currently being tested, but we've been talking about Trino for a long time. This is an FYI as of this morning to the rest of the team. We recently got our GCP budget increased to 1,000 CPUs at a time. So we're allowed to rent, 1,000 CPUs at a time at US Central on Google Cloud, which is nice. We've been running some pretty large experiments, which thus far have been capped at 200 CPUs at a time, to basically run our data pipeline on Trino in a scale out, fan out fashion on top of Iceberg tables, which you can see how we've set that up in this PR, which Reuven put together last week. So this is really exciting. I think I'm hoping this will be both more scalable and more reliable and lower cost for running pipeline workloads. Not for serving the front end or anything like that. Right now, it's just purely for the pipeline. It'll be some time before we actually are using Trino for more things. You can get a better sense of our progress on the Lakehouse milestone. So this is kind of where we're tracking the remaining work related to trying to transition more of our pipeline to a data lake as opposed to running everything in BigQuery, which has worked pretty well so far, but there are definitely scalability limitations when it comes to time series metrics and definitely cost considerations. So bunch of things we want to do here. I'll let Reuven talk more about this next time when he gets back. But generally speaking, space that I'm pretty excited about. And then the last thing I'll, sort of demo, and I think like this is just more of like how things are kind of coming together. These key metrics have always kind of existed, and we demoed this at a previous demo day. But we now have like this chart widget, which is currently connected properly to our ClickHouse database. And the data that you'll see here right now, I mean, this is just 2024 data. This is data that we processed when running SQL Mesh on top of ClickHouse directly, which we realized one of the reasons why we moved to Trino is because there are performance considerations, and we're increasingly convinced that ClickHouse is not going to be the long-term solution for running pipeline workloads. That's why we're doing this whole Trino thing. But we were able to run like a bunch of metrics on top of SQL Mesh, on top of ClickHouse, just for 2024. So, for what it's worth, like this stuff is wired up, and you can start to play with it today. It hasn't run recently, so you'll see that like the numbers drop to 0 for anything past mid-August. That shouldn't be surprising. We just haven't run the numbers for anything before January 1st, 2024, and anything after September. But I think the idea, just to give people a picture of how all these things will wire together, is as we're running these Trino workloads, we're going to start to compute time series metrics for every metric for all time, all the way back to 2015, I believe. And then we'll copy them into ClickHouse. And when we've copied them into ClickHouse, they should just show up here because all the plumbing here is already set up. So, if our pipeline could just run in ClickHouse, this would already be working. Obviously, it's not. And so we just have a subset of these metrics that we've previously been able to run. And you should be able to plot them, at least for this limited time range now. And this is all there. So that's fun. Wonder why there was a peak in gas fees. Anyway, so that's the chart widget. I think in terms of OSO terminal MVP-ish kind of features, we're getting pretty close to having this be something people can play with. I think it's more around like running the pipeline and getting data quality now, as opposed to plumbing. Like it's performing, at least on the serving infrastructure. Curious what you guys think about it so far. At least on like the database serving infrastructure, ClickHouse has been performing pretty well. It's more like the pipeline workloads where it doesn't work that well. But this part is actually pretty. The website feels way more responsive than like the previous iteration of this, and this part is actually feeling pretty good.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, so that's OSO terminal, and then the last thing I was just gonna throw shout out to was thanks to the Gitcoin team for pointing out bugs. There was a API bug that we were made aware of where if you were passing in authorization tokens to here, let me show you. If you were passing authorization tokens into our API, which you can do here as well, just as a quick reminder, this is our Apollo Studio. So you can create queries, you can query our database, you can get, you can run stuff and get the data. Sorry, this query is probably not fully formed. Yeah, I'm not passing in a metric ID, but you get the idea. You can kind of like explore our API here and form queries. And then you can also pass in HTTP headers here. So in our documentation, you'll see what's the right way to pass in authorization tokens. There was like a very specific error where this token wasn't being passed properly if you were doing these queries from a different origin, and then you were doing cores to our API. That token wasn't being passed through properly. So thanks to them for reporting that bug and helping us fix it. That was super, super helpful. We've only ever done this single origin for ourselves, obviously. So it was like easy to miss this error. But the power of the community, it's been really awesome working with the Gitcoin team, and really appreciate that bug report. So hopefully it's confirmed now that this API is working cross origin, and I think we should expect to see these metrics being shown on like a future Gitcoin round. I think.
Yay! Yep, the one that's coming up, and OSO will be in it.
OSO will be in it, and just as a really, just to recap where you're in terms of data quality, our dbt pipeline on BigQuery has been running for a while now, and so I think we should expect most of these models to be fine and running just fine. If they're not, please report something. The main thing that we know isn't of high data quality yet is anything that's prefixed OSO time series metrics. And that's because we cannot run these on BigQuery. We'll just run out of money like tomorrow. So that's why we're trying to do this Trino thing to do it out of band, to both scale out and save some money, and to compute these metrics in a more scalable way. So you can use them like these are the same models that currently power our website. Just expect there to be no data before January 1st, 2024, and no data after September, 2024. But you can start to plumb up, your websites to it. It's just these models will not have all the data that you expect, but everything else should be fine. So report bugs if it's anything but that. Yeah, that's all I wanted to share. Can pause for questions. I see Javi still trying to share his screen.
Yeah, I don't know what's happening. It's completely failing at the first. Okay, I got it to work. Oh, cool. Can you see it?
Yes. Oh my God! At the last minute. Nice work.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, then I'll explain what I've been working on. So one cool thing I've been working on is the depths dependencies model. So basically, Google maintains a project which is called Open Source Insights that computes and saves in a BigQuery dataset all of the different dependencies in between packages. For example, it is indexing more than 3 million NPM packages, 125 million Go modules, and it actually how to say this, saves the dependencies in between. And this is pretty cool because we're able to compute when one package has, for example, started being a dependency of another or removed. And that has been my job in the past few days. So here's a small sneak peek of first of all, the dependencies that have the system, the name, the version, the namespace, everything. And then we are doing some analysis on that. So basically, here's the main event intermediate model that is able to compute all the different IDs, the namespaces, and then it flattens the data so it can be fed into the event table. This dataset is pretty huge. It's like 44 terabytes of data. So there's a lot of events. But that allows us to compute a lot of metrics over time, such as when this package was added, and to be able to plot some cool graphics. On the other hand, I've also been working on a blog post for the Open Collective dataset. As a small recap for everyone that's not aware of this, over the past month, I've been recapping all of the transactions that have been occurred in Open Collective. All of the transactions are in our datasets for both expenses and deposits. And I've created this small blog post that has some cool insights. For example, randomly speaking, the most common average donation in Open Collective is $1,500. So mainly if you're trying to, set up the tiers for donating, if you put that tier, it's pretty likely that people will say, okay, that's a fair amount. And then with this dataset as well, you can analyze the donations overall. For example, this is the Pandas project, which received a lot of money at the beginning of 2022, and then it's been really flat. But then Bubble, for instance, has a way more active Open Collective community with this huge spike in the pandemic. So it allows us, to see those metrics. And we can even see with this query that is on our Open Collective BigQuery dataset, we can see that at the beginning of 2024, it's like as usual, it's been for the last 5 years. And then there's this huge rise. So in the last few months, Open Collective donations have skyrocketed. So these are some cool insight that we get from this data, which is updated weekly. And it's already on our BigQuery hub. So yeah, basically that's what I've been working on. I've been working on as well on some funding metrics, but those are still on the oven, so they'll be ready soon. And yeah, basically that's it.
I have a few questions about this.
Yep.
Well, first of all, random thought. This may or may not actually be true. But I know like a lot of companies will match donations up to a certain amount. and I'm finding that like a good number of these companies match donations up to $1,500. So I wonder if that's part of it. I have no
Well,
idea. Like, uh, anyway, I'll paste the
that's
link
really
in
interesting.
Discord, but that's a conjecture, totally speculative, probably false.
I mean, that makes sense, though.
I'm also curious, Javi, where does your avatar come from? The
Okay. So actually, this is a fun story. So every time I want a hackathon with my friends, in order to immortalize the moment, I like to buy an NFT and to keep them. So this is an NFT that I bought with my friends, which I really liked, and it is my profile picture. This NFT I bought after I won some prizes with some friends in Ethereum Barcelona a year and a half ago. I really enjoyed the experience, and I like to cycle the profile pictures. So yeah, that's basically the story behind.
Right. Who's the artist?
So it's of a collection that's called JPEG, as in YAY peg. There are like a lot of NFTs. They're different. They have like different hats, different shirts. And yeah, I bought one which I liked. It wasn't too expensive. So yeah, that's the one I'm rocking with.
Nice. Okay, cool. Awesome. Thanks for sharing. This is cool.
You're welcome.
In Santiago, you'll be pleased to know that Carl's like making heavy use of your EAS attestation. So thanks again for what you demoed last week.
He knows.
You know, but we're immortalizing it in the YouTube stream, so now everybody knows.
I have
Anything
one more
else?
thing. I can show the last thing that I was running while we were. Can you guys see? You see my
Slowing.
screen?
Yep.
Okay. So our friends over at OpenRank, we work with them during Optimism Retrofunding 5 to do something called Developer Rank, where we basically took a set of OP Stack repos, created some kind of weighting of those repos, and then identified contributors to those repos, and then based on their reputation proximity to other repos, created a graph and a ranking for other developers and other repos. So what they've done now is actually published it's a bit of an app which allows you to put in any repos that you might want to create your trust seed, and then you can play with some of the parameters, and it will create your own version of Developer Rank based on your own open source network. It's slow. It takes about 15-20 minutes to run. So I was at the beginning of the demo queuing that up, and I just put in a few examples here. So we have the Optimism one, we have OSS Directory, and we have IPFS as some examples. What this is doing is saying weight OSS Directory as 50%, and then these ones are 25% effectively for a total 4 points. And so, yeah, this takes about 20 minutes or so to run, and then once it's done, you can download CSV. I just downloaded that. Let me open it, and you can see what the data looks like. I actually haven't seen what the results are. It looks like it's a big file.
Live demos are risky, Carl.
Live demos, not my own demo. Okay. But yeah, you can basically see here are the repos and users that are closest. And no surprise, I think because I've contributed to a couple of these. You have myself, you have Ray, you have Reuven, you have Steven, etc. Distributed Doge. So anyway, this is cool. David Gasquez, there we go. Hypercerts. And so you can access that at OpenRank. It's a Vercel app, but we can share the link. So thanks, OpenRank team. This is really cool. Excited to see the next versions of this.
Yeah, super cool. Wait, who actually built this website? It was the OpenRank team, right?
Yeah, they did it.
Awesome. Do we have like man, I feel like you've shown so many cool random like dashboards or things that people published on Streamlit, like whether it's the Arbitrum one or others in the past. Like, are we cataloging these somewhere? Do we have a librarian? Like, what's the best place to find all of them?
Not systematically. There isn't like an awesome list of awesome things that people have done.
Yeah,
We should start one.
we should do it. Yeah, that's a great idea. Like an awesome OSO, and just like keep track of these.
Yep.
I'll leave you right now. This is yeah, that's a great idea. All right. Any other questions or comments?
I just have a quick question. What were you saying that you're going to use? Like you're going to get involved with Gitcoin, like using the data for something? soon?
Oh,
Just
I was just
curious.
referring to the fact that some of the Gitcoin folks were using our API.
Okay.
And I think they plan on surfacing some of these metrics in like profile pages for future Gitcoin rounds.
Yes.
Okay.
So there's a. Here, I'll share my screen again. Can you see?
Nope.
No, not yet.
How about now?
Yes.
Oh yeah.
So what there will be is based on the GitHub repo for now. They can extend to other things. There will be an impact measurement tab. And this will include metrics that we provide.
Oh, okay. But the only views like for each project, right? There's not going to be like a comparison view for different projects in the same category or anything like that.
Well, we support that. So they could grab it from the API, for example.
Yeah, okay.
Here's Gitcoin grants. And if you wanted to look at, say, active developers 30 days over all these projects, that may not be working. Here's all the different projects.
Yeah, just to recap what I was saying earlier, any of these like tables in the collections page are powered by our DBT, which is running fine. Anything that's a time series chart may be inaccurate data.
Yeah, this hasn't been updating either because you can see all these are stopped at the same thing. So I think it's ClickHouse hasn't pulled from the latest data.
Oh, I see. Well, yeah, we're just gonna have to run that copy job.
Yeah.
We can do that. That I'm pretty confident runs, and if it doesn't, it's an unknown bug. So we should do that.
Yeah.
Have we run the code metrics and on-chain metrics by project models on DBT recently?
Oh yeah, they run every week.
Okay, cool. Yeah, let me try triggering a copy job manually.
Nice.
But to do these comparisons, you had to like do it by yourself, right? Like Gitcoin doesn't have any plans to implement these types of comparisons in the near future.
Maybe they will in the future.
Okay.
They haven't committed to anything, but we also have a bit of a working group set up with them to discuss things like that for collaboration.
Okay.
Yeah, this hasn't updated in a while. Okay, cool.
Cool. Any other questions?
I don't think so.
All right. Well, thanks for joining. I think we'll recap next time.
Awesome.